So, boy, it feels like we're starting early on these Inside the Artist Studio talks because it's so nice outside and it's hard to think about January in Denver on a day like today. But here we are with Michael Blessing and Shay Davis and Nancy Bass. And so welcome. I'm so glad you all could make it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
So, usually there's some interesting connection that sort of comes about on these calls as we get to chatting. But I was telling the artist that last night when I was thinking about getting the three of you on a Zoom together, that I think you each have sort of a sense of whimsy and a little bit of tongue in cheek with your work, that you take it to another level. It's not just a faithful rendition of, a portrait or, cows or anything like that. There's always something a little extra to the work, which is so much fun to be around. And I'll tell you what, as a curator, if you make me laugh, you have just absolutely made my day. And the three of you always do bring it, when I see your work. So I can't wait to see these pieces in person. But anyway, why don't we are going to get started with Michael Blessing. And so Michael, I am going to put the spotlight on you.
Okay.
Okay. So I've only got one piece on the website at this point, but you've got another one over your shoulder that we're getting, over your right shoulder, I think, if I have this correctly. So for, you know what? Yeah. I know you have to kind of decide which, do I have it backwards or do you, so let's talk. I really want to talk about your work. And I love telling people when I first saw your work, I think it was in Montana. It was actually, I believe it was a painting of one of the signs, those big old beautiful neon signs that they have in some of the old buildings in gosh, where were you? Were you in Bozeman?
Bozeman, yeah, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did a lot of neon signs. I still do them on occasion still, but there was about a 2 or 3 year period where I was focused on them due to an auction that happened at the CM Russell that got a lot of attention. And so a lot of people wanted them and galleries wanted them. So I was off to the races making paintings of neon signs.
Oh my God.
But that also led to what I do in these pieces that you see behind me, in that I didn't want to leave the audience that I had went with for those 3 years and who purchased my work, other collectors and all, leave them behind in a new direction that I was being called to do. And that was taking my love of painting figures, painting faces, hands, feet, body, clothing. I missed doing that because that's what I had done prior to doing any neon signs. And so I thought using the element of neon tubing and light, glow of light and color as a compositional element to put it on the figure. My wife, Megan, thought I was crazy when I thought of the idea at first, but I said, no, believe me, it's going to work.
And sure enough, you were right. You were right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
And you know what? It's really fun to stand in front of your work too. I love when people say, "Is that really neon? Is that plugged in?" And I kind of move them up close to it, and we look at the optical illusion that you're able to create with this work, because it's not like you're using neon paint either. I mean, you're using traditional paint colors to create this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the relationships of color and value, light,
Mm,
against each other, and how the eye sees, and everybody sees a little bit differently in terms of color and those values. Some people are very sensitive to light, others are not so much. So all those other factors come into play when the viewer is in front of any piece of art.
yeah.
And so I try to play off of those things to get the effect that I want in a piece, for the
Mm,
viewer to just have fun with, and enjoy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they are fun. And you even did some pieces with actual neon tubing, right?
Yes, I have. I still do them. It's basically an oil painting of some of these characters, and I have done a couple of neon signs as well in this way, renditions of them.
Right.
But then putting actual neon, and now I'm using LED neon
Mm,
on top of the oil paintings, which they've been received very well too. It
yeah.
is another price demographic, that is, I guess it's probably, there are different levels of signature pieces in
Mm,
anybody's work.
yeah.
But these are due to the expense of making them. First of all, I don't make very many, uh,
Yeah.
and but the ones I do and have made, they've been very well received, and um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still doing them, and they're really
Oh,
fun.
good.
I really enjoy doing them a lot.
Yeah. I always thought if I had a really cool bar in my house that I would want, you know, want one of those. Hey, let's talk about, I'm going to do a screen share, and I want to also talk about, so you're kind of doing this really fun riff on these old westerns. And so this piece is called Scarface, and all right, I am not up on my old westerns, but
Oh, this is
what?
Sacrifice.
Oh, sorry, Sacrifice. Oh my gosh. Yes. So see, I was in the movies, but the wrong movie.
Yeah, right.
Way wrong movie. Um, yeah. So okay, Sacrifice. Who's the actor?
The actor, is Val Kilmer, and
Ah,
this is his. I think more than likely this will be the most memorable person that he played in a movie, and a lot of people would agree with that. That his portraying Doc Holliday in the Tombstone story,
mhm.
for the movie Tombstone, was iconic. And um, this is out of one of the scenes where he's just blatantly baiting the people that are doing evil deeds to go ahead and take a poke at him, leaving himself wide open. And that's why I titled it Sacrifice. I think just by the pose as well, it's like, go ahead and take your best shot.
Yeah.
So and it does carry the theme because of this, the story, and it being a true story that actually happened, of people doing things to a town and the people of that town in Arizona that
Mhm.
were really heinous things, and they were, needed to be confronted. And these men had the courage and heart to do that. So
Yeah.
it's a battle of, good and evil, and which are iconic stories, through
Yeah.
time. And so I like to give some of that, flavor, to my work as well. I do some of the bad guys in some of my paintings, but they're mainly the heroes, that I paint, and certainly Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, would you talk about that a little bit? Because it's such an interesting thing that, when people come to the Coor show, we're not a traditional Western show. In when you compare the show to other national Western shows that have a lot of more sort of historic kind of paintings of the West, and you're one of those artists that I find your work to be in a really contemporary vein.
Mhm.
But it's also this nod to the old Western, which has shaped, for better and worse, um,
Right.
the myth of the West. And so I wonder if you would talk about that a little bit of, this idea of the Western and what you're kind of doing with it.
Yeah, certainly all that you just mentioned is contained within the genre, and certainly uh, since that time, we've had plenty of time to look back and review that period, and
Mm,
for better or worse, of course, it's almost a double-edged sword.
mm,
However, I guess on two things. This was my experience of the West growing up as a kid, was seeing it through these romanticized tales being told in movies.
mm,
And so in these characters, the spaghetti westerns and John Wayne and others that played cowboys and people that braved the Old West and all of that happened there historically, um, they were bigger than life heroes of sorts as a 6-year-old, 5, 6, 7-year-old watching these. So that was my experience of the West, was viewing that. Now, certainly going through school and reading about it and seeing documentaries and learning more about what actually transpired definitely paints a different picture of the West. And what I try to do is bring fun and some intrigue in some of my pieces. A lot of times by the title, it's asking more from the viewer to find out what it is I'm going for in terms of the connection between title and what they're actually seeing.
mm,
But it is that iconic story of versus good versus evil. It's the hero's tale, the reluctant hero's tale
yeah,
in some cases, and um, you know, sacrifice, courage, things that people would lose their lives for in order to set things right.
mm,
Those stories you can find in any time period and in any genre of anything. And I
right,
try to crack that window open a little bit through the artistic. And I think it's a valid art form in and of itself, is these Westerns of mid last century um, have portrayed. And granted that it's been morphed into things that were not particularly accurate
yeah,
historically. And so there is that you have to keep in mind, but some have too. And some of the films have tried to keep certain issues of the time, um, I guess, for lack of better words, um, there are sensitive things that happen during that period, and they need to be held and reminded. People need to be
yeah,
reminded of them, and that these films are not to be taken, not in all cases, but in a number of cases, not to be, this is the picture of the Old West, and that's how it happened, and all of
right,
that. So anyway, there's all those topics that can be cracked open for sure. But what
right.
I try to do is bring those forces of conflict that were played out during that period and then
Mm,
portrayed by film, which is an art form in
yeah.
and of itself, and certainly that genre.
Well,
I
and I
don't
like
know.
what you're saying about that too, because I think that Western art is considered really kind of static, as an art form, which is something that I've come up against, in presenting the show to collectors, that no, this is really a very lively genre within the art field. And it's something that I think has emerged with a strong voice in our part of the country, right? So, taking this and with a twist on these old Westerns, and actually kind of asking people to rethink them. I love that you're doing that. So, hey, quickly tell me about Clint Eastwood behind you.
Yeah. Well, this is him in one of his iconic poses
Yeah.
from the Leone pictures and spaghetti Western, the trilogy, basically. Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars and a Few Dollars More. Those three films were to be as a trilogy of sorts, and they do connect just through the character of Clint Eastwood being portrayed here.
Yeah.
So the dress is the same, the cigar is there,
Yeah.
and all the things that people recognize. But it's another one of his poses, and
Yeah.
so I like it. I like his face,
Mhm.
how the expression in his face, his eyes, his intent. It's what it seems to
Yeah.
be.
The iconic squint, Clint Eastwood squint. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that's really, and you know what? You're definitely one of the artists in the Coors show that I think I've told you this every year. I will see groups of people and they're always led by some young guy going, come on, they're this way. And
no, they got to
and
come
then
see him.
they like are
Yeah.
stand in front of your work. And it's fun because they appear to me anyway to be like some of either the kids who are showing cattle, or maybe they're rodeo guys, or it just really strikes a great demographic. And I think something that maybe a lot of people don't know is that we are open the show is open to the public during the National Western Stock Show, and so we'll get close to 40,000 people walking through the exhibit.
Wow,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that's people who make their living in the West, as ranchers and as farmers, and kids who are in 4-H and all that kind of stuff. And so there's really a level of authenticity that the artists in the show have to meet, because your audience isn't all like, these big time collectors or people from museums and other curators. It is people who live the life. And
Right.
yeah, and they kind of come in and you get busted pretty quick if you're not being authentic about what you're doing.
Well, I'm grateful that uh, all demographics of folks are coming through the show, and that they can look at certainly what I'm doing, and just kind of smile, or it will
Yeah.
intrigue a conversation or something. I'm grateful for that.
It's really fun because people really don't get how you do the neon thing. And I think that's the thing, like they love the characters, but then that you make these feel like they're coming off the wall or that they're plugged
Yeah.
in somehow is really fun.
All
It's
right. Oh,
great.
good.
So
That's good to hear. I'm glad. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, stay there, Michael. Hang on. Nancy, I'm coming to you.
Oh,
Nancy
great.
Bass.
I'm here.
How are you? So we were just talking. You have survived, or did you take off before the hurricane hit Florida?
We weren't even in Florida during the
Ah,
hurricane, so we haven't been down there. Most people, where we live aren't really down there until
yeah,
November, but people are going down because of damages and trying to deal with things. But we were
yeah,
really lucky. Our condo was fine. We're just we'll just wait and see when we go down there. But
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
beautiful day in the winter.
Yeah.
It really is.
But maybe a little more beautiful than where you are right now in Connecticut. In
No,
the
Connecticut
winter?
is beautiful. It's beautiful up here. The leaves are changing and
Oh,
falling.
right
It's
now. Yeah, but the winter, maybe not so much fun.
yes. No, I don't think so. You're right. You're absolutely right.
So I remember last time we talked, we were talking about these cows, and I'm going to do a screen share with you because I want to dive into these cows. And I remember we were talking about them, and a lot of these cows are based on animals that you and your husband owned when you had a little ranch.
We did. We had they call it a farm in Virginia, but
Yeah.
for 35 years we were farmers. We really didn't know what we were doing. We started with cattle and Black Angus, and had a herd and a Hereford bull, and figured out with some help how to raise cattle over the years. And I just started. I had been a portrait artist originally. I had painted children, and I loved that. And then when we moved to the farm, I started painting the landscape, kind of very traditional, and the cows would be in the background. And then with time, the cows got bigger and bigger, and I guess because I'm a portraitist underneath everything. And one day I came home onto the farm, and there was a white cow, a Charolais, and I thought, oh my God, my husband has bought me this fabulous cow, and he hadn't. It just showed up, and it escaped from a neighbor farm, and but it started this whole thing. I started wanting all different colors of cows for my painting. So we ended up with a herd of cows that had nothing to do with food based or anything, but being beautiful, having, colors, varied colors. And so over the years, we had just amazing cows. Everyone had a name, and everyone has a file on my computer. And I just go to those images and recreate those cows that we raised over the years. This one you have up is one of our little calves. It's probably a cross with a Hereford and a Simmental, I'm guessing. I'm not really 100% sure. But yeah, I've always loved animals. It was the first thing I remember when I was 3 years old. It's my first memory, was I wanted to have a dog, and I figured out how to draw a poodle in pink. And then I did a poodle in every color in the Crayola box.
Wow.
And so it's really like I'm doing the same thing, you can see, that I was doing when I was 3 years old. It's all about color, and it's about animals, and it's finding different ways to be fun, to excite myself, to kind of celebrate just the beauty of the animals. And that's what I just love to do. And
Talk
this year,
about, yeah. I want you to talk about the series of At the Museum, because this is the series that I first saw in your work, and I thought, oh my God, it just cracked me up, and I loved it. A Cow in a Museum. And this one after Damien Hirst.
right.
Yeah, and I love, like, there's that echo on the cow of the dot, on his side there. But would you talk about the At the Museum series that you've
Sure.
been doing?
So it started with one of my patrons, my good patrons, and she loves New York, and she asked me to do a commission for her husband, and she wanted a cow in front of the Metropolitan Museum. And so we talked about it, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And I said, what about a favorite painting of his? And so he came up with a favorite painting. And so I played with that, and I ended up doing the first of these museum pieces. And I loved it so much, and I was so excited because from my earliest memories, my father loved art too. We would go to museums. That was just the thing we did. And so it was kind of just a celebration of this love of art. Um, so after having done that one commission, I just kept going, and I've done the Stamy and Hearst painting. I was in New York, oh, I don't know, at Gagosian maybe 10 years ago or something, and saw the exhibit of the dot paintings, which
Mhm.
it was just crazy, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, who would do this? But they were fun, and I always wanted to do something with it. And so I've been waiting to do this painting. Um, and so the whole series is just celebrating works and art that I love. Thibaut, I've
Mhm.
always loved Wayne Thibaut. When I was in college in the 70s, I was studying art, and we were tasked to go to an art museum. This was in Des Moines, Iowa, to an exhibit of his, and I had never heard of him. I don't
What?
think any of us had heard from him. He was, but it was so overwhelming and gorgeous, and we were we had to come back and paint a Thibaut.
Oh,
Um,
fun.
so yeah, it was really fun with this heavy paint. So anyway, the ice cream cone is a just an homage to Thibaut, who had a fabulous career.
Mhm.
Um, this painting, the Mel Bachner, and I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm terrible at names, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this series of his, the blah blah blah, and he's done a lot of them, and it just sums up the time. Sometimes that's all you want to say,
Right.
it's just we're in crazy times.
Yeah.
And so the fun thing about this series is what goes in before I start painting. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to choose a painting, which, there's so many I could choose from, but I have to figure that out. And I have several that I want to do. But then the tricky part is I have to find the cow that fits the painting, that fits the mood
Right.
I want to say in the painting. And
'Cause this cow is definitely doing that. It's like blah, 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 move along. Kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the harder part. So I tried different cows and different little sketches, trying to figure out what I want until I finally come up with the right cow,
Nice.
and play with different ways of, how I want to present it, rectangular, square, whatever is going to work. So that's really kind of the fun part. It's like a puzzle. What am I going to do to make this a really exciting image for me?
Well, and
So yeah,
there's that interesting thing too, that like in art school, exactly as you were saying, then you're tasked with, create your own Thibaut painting, right? So
right.
in learning the craft part and the mechanics of it, you copy other famous works of art, and it's just so much fun to see what you're doing with your skill level and your ability and your years as an artist, to kind of have this sort of wink back at art history, and to pull these paintings in and then have a cow wander past. It's just so much fun. It's
Yeah.
really fun in the course show.
Well, I'm glad to hear it because I think we all need some fun. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I want. I want people to enjoy these, to enjoy the whimsical quality of the beautiful, the animals, but also the technicality of the recreating the painting and the whole thing.
Yeah. And then you do some of these wonderful little paintings for us. That's what, 7 by 7? Is
Six
that
by
6 by 6?
yeah,
Even
yeah.
smaller. But just
So
really capturing this fun expression, and they're really joyful.
this was my bull. This was one of my favorite bulls, and we raised him from the time he was little. And of course, he grew into a gigantic, gorgeous thing. So I've painted Ferdinand many times.
Yes.
But yeah, it started, some years ago. I started this. I had my cows, and I don't know. I just started making little portraits, and people loved them,
Yeah.
and I have just kept doing it. And it's really interesting because when I look back, I've probably been doing these portraits for 20 years at least. I look back at how they've evolved. It's to be doing the same series and seeing how your technique changes, how whatever's in your mind changes, and what you bring to it. I don't know. It's really interesting. And I hope, as you keep evolving as an artist, you want more depth in it, more personality. And,
Yeah.
it's capturing the colors of the light and the shadow and the personality, trying to get that spark of that living creature.
It's
Um,
that's an interesting conversation. And one I was just having with an artist yesterday in his studio that, you've got these landscapes and these other paintings, and now I need you to add some poetry. And I mean, I called it poetry, but it is that something that, you know, takes it to the next level from being a faithful rendition of, these cows that you raised and know so well, even if that was years ago, right? But there's some poetry that you need to add to it to make it art, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, but it's a hard thing to tell an artist because it kind of has to evolve, and it,
Yeah.
it comes out of love, I think, a passion for something. It's just,
Mhm.
I don't know, you start off with just learning how to paint something, and then you get to that point, and then it's like, oh, but I want to be better than that. It looks like everybody else's. And
Right.
yeah, it's tricky, and a lot of people paint portraits of cows, so
I
but
see
people
them.
will,
I see a lot of them.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
They all
And
come across my desk.
oh boy. Well, I hope mine are, different.
Yeah, very
I,
much so. Yeah.
yeah, I know, the portraits are more traditional, but I think even then I have, mine tend to be softer and have a very sweetness to them. So I think everybody's is a little different.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but I think the museum series took it into another level, really. And I don't even show these in galleries. I just pretty much have sold them on my own. Um,
Why is that? Your galleries expect different work from you, or?
no, I just, I haven't. When I post one, I sell it. So
Oh,
it had
doesn't.
it just yeah, it just, I don't know. I've just never had needed to really do that or had 10 of them lined up for a gallery that I could send them or something to really have a show. I
Wow,
should, but I don't know. I pay for myself for the love of it. And I'm
that's
just
the
lucky
best
that,
work. Yeah, that's the
yeah.
best work.
And I'm just lucky that somebody wants one, so it's
Yeah,
great fun. I love
that's
being in the tours. So I just really love being part of it. I
I'm
feel
glad.
Western, even though I don't live in the West. I've been out there many
All right.
times.
All
Well,
right.
we've adopted you. We just have
Great.
adopted you. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So we're all good. Okay, hang tight, Nancy. We're gonna come back. Let me see. Did I remove the spotlight? All right, Shay Davis,
Hello.
brand new to the Coors Show. Welcome, Shay.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi.
I would just like to say thank you so much for this opportunity to be in the show. I've just heard nothing but great things about it, and I'm super honored to be part of it. So,
Well, I'm
thanks.
so glad. I hope we don't let you down. I don't think we will. We have fun. We're not one of those stuffy shows. We like to let our hair down.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. So, all right. So I saw your work in Boulder at actually a show in a church that was so fantastic. And your work really caught me off guard. And I have to say, as a curator, when something makes me stop and look twice, it's a really good thing, because as Nancy was saying, a lot of people paint cows, and it is very true. And so to see something from such a crazy perspective is really fun. You know, Michael's perspective and what he's doing with this sort of neon signs and this push-pull of history and fiction. Nancy with cows walking through these great works of art that we know so well, and adding this just real humorous twist to it. And then your work. And so you're taking the fish's perspective in a sense, right?
Yeah. I had been doing surrealism for about 20 years. And it's only, well, not only, but it's been about 3 years where I just wanted to switch it up a little bit, and try something new. And I just kind of picked the Western look, and it's kind of a challenge, and I love challenges. I just love them. And so I said, let's do this. And I just kind of started doing, I guess, practice paintings to kind of see where it would lead me. And you hear this from artists all the time, or, scientists, Tesla, where stuff just kind of pops into your head, and it comes out of nowhere, the universe. And I had this idea that to do an underwater scene like that. And I just kind of worked on it over the last couple of years, and this is where it's evolved to. Wow. And I had a sports upbringing with my art. And so that competitive nature, I have always tried to put every single thing I can into my art. The detail, just kind of be a master of everything. And the main one is to do stuff that I'm so love doing, because I don't know what it's going to be like at the end. And I kind of want to have something new that no one's ever seen. And this kind of hit the spot on that.
So go back. What do you mean you had a sports upbringing?
Yeah, well, it's funny. And art, I started drawing and doing, any kind of arts when I was like 5. And about the same time, got into sports. And my family's a big sports family, but no one was an artist in any kind of side, whether cousin, uncle, grandpa, grandma. And I just loved it. Wow. And so my parents pushed me to do that with sports. I was a high school All-American in basketball and football. I had a full ride to CU to play football, and I got injured. And so the hopes and dreams were going to the NFL, which probably could have happened, but those injuries took me out. And I would say a couple of years after college, I had sold my first painting, and I just knew that was my path in life. Even before I sold it, it's such a passion that that I have to do it. It's just, there's nothing in this world that it means more to me other than family, friends, and health is art.
So let's take a look. I'm going to do a screen share, and I want to take a look at the one piece we have up on the site. Oh, Nellie. Whoa, Nellie. And tell me about this piece, because so there's a lot of different things going on with this. One, it's the fish's perspective, but two, you are playing with an underwater perspective, which is this weird bubble concept, right? And that everything is distorted, and it's sort of like things in this mirror are maybe closer than they look kind of thing. And so was this part of like kind of coming up this sort of messing around with ideas to figure out how to really make this work? Because it does have a very surrealist perspective to it.
Yeah, I on this one particularly, the over the last couple of years, I had kind of not run out of, because there's not a whole lot of animals that dive underwater that are Western. You know, you got bears, otters, you know, moose get in the water. And like I was saying earlier, this one was, I was just meditating one day and this thought came into my head of, oh my goodness, let's put a cowboy maybe getting chased by the bear and he just had fallen under, and use that same perspective. And then the tough part was kind of compositionally coming up with a view to where, because just to, you know, this character, I kind of had to just kind of make him out of my head, because there's not really any references of, and I didn't go underwater and have a friend or anyone take a picture. It's just, but so that took some time, but it just popped in my head one day, and then I just rendered it down to where my sketches and whatnot were dialed in, and then I just went with it. But you know, as it looks, yeah, this view of the bear up top, and then the viewer can kind of decide, well, you know, he is shooting up at the bear, but well, what was he? Where's his horse? Was he getting chased? Did he just fall in? I like to put a story with about every painting I do, and yeah, I put a lot of thinking well before I even start a sketch about where I want the painting to be, and basically from color composition to everything. But
okay, so I've got to ask the obvious question here that if I don't ask it, Michael's going to ask it. What the hell kind of meditation are you doing that you are seeing a cowboy?
I don't know. I'm a weird guy, and so I have just, my mind is out there in everything, and I want to do stuff that's, and you know, sometimes now that you bring it up, I don't even know if I want to. It just comes out of me to do things that are totally unique and different. And so, you know.
So, okay, let me stop the screen share and go back to this. This is another painting over your shoulder here of this bear diving in. And I think it's so fascinating because right away you see the bear kind of break in the water. And then this fish sort of has this look like, oh shit.
Well, that was the name of the first one of the bear series, I guess. It was Scared Shitless.
Yeah.
And so it was a similar painting. I've just, you know, I love that that angle, and it has this emotion to it where you're like, wow, this is this capture of time to where this bear is just going after the salmon. And I just try to give it that, you know, especially with those fish, to where they're like, oh, great, here we go again.
Oh my God. I just got out of a jam. So are you a fisherman as well? Yeah,
I actually last year I have a good buddy of mine he's an avid hunter and fisherman, and we went on a 4-day, and I became a master angler because I caught over a 28-inch walleye.
Wow.
And so I got like a plaque, but I'm, you know, I'm an avid, I guess, sportsman. I don't do any sports as far as teams go anymore, but I would say every day I work out, I snowboard, I bike, I surf, pretty much about every kind of crazy sport you could do. I fish, hunt. I don't hunt as much, but more fishing than that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's just so interesting because I think that really that athleticism shows in your work as well. I mean, because there's a lot of
Motion.
motion to it and a physicality to it. It's really fun. It kind of is it's it takes you to a different place. You know, it takes you underwater to a place that, depending on your feelings about water, it's either uncomfortable or a little jarring or an exciting adventure, right?
yeah. And I love water. I grew up swimming as well, and lived in California until about 8 years ago. After, well, I guess 2003 to maybe 2014. So it was a long stint, 10, 11 years, and surfed about every day. So
Wow.
I'm just a waterman as well. And so I just think that part of me kind of drew me into doing this underwater uh, scene that I've been
Yeah.
up to lately.
Hey, tell me about the surrealist work that you were doing and how that informs this work now.
Well, and I guess it, as I said earlier, I just try to put everything into it, even to where I did my first big series. I did a series on the 7 deadly sins.
Well,
And so I had lust and greed and all of them. And that was just kind of the name of the whole thing. But then each painting had these cool, surreal metaphors that went with a sin. And I loved it. And then I did another one recently while I was in Denver at a Ben gallery that was endangered species. And that was tough because I basically took the 7 continents and did 4 different sizes. So it was 28 paintings for this show. And each continent I put a bunch of animals in, but they all had to be endangered. So some weren't as cool because they were endangered. And there were some really cool animals that I couldn't put in that I wanted to that weren't endangered. So,
yeah.
But just other than that passion, I've always wanted to put like I said, everything in the painting, and in, I guess not the top, but maybe is something that inspires people and makes them think, not only like, oh, wow, this is unique and different, but especially with those series, oh, shoot, okay, I guess with the endangered, it could make people think about what we're doing to the planet and that kind of thing. So there's always a story and just something that has meaning. I really like the meaning behind them.
Yeah. You know what, on that note, I want to open it up to each of you, Nancy, Michael, and Shay. And I think that, you know, Shay, what you're saying is really hit on something that the three of you do very well in particular, is you bring up topics and subject matter and concepts that, you know, hey, we might want to think about this, right? I'm wondering if the three of you would kind of talk about that from your own perspective, and what painting and being an artist has allowed you to do, and maybe what people have said about your work, and any comments like that that you have.
Who wants to go? I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, go, Shay, go.
Well, I guess I really like this guy, and I listened to him, Jordan Peterson. I'm sure you guys have heard of who he is, and he talks about art a lot, and just how important art is to people. I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand, without even realizing it, art is everywhere, and it grows cities, it's beauty. And just like music, we need beauty in this world, especially today. And I feel like art is huge in inspiring people to think certain ways. And I try to do it in a positive way. So it's just, I'm honored and I thank God that I have the gift and the passion to do art where I can have a voice and can inspire people to think outside the box and think about things that are meaningful. So
Yeah. What about Michael? Nancy, what do you got to add?
Yeah, I step my foot into that arena as well at times. And like I mentioned earlier with my titles, try to ask the viewer to ask a question. Could be something that would pertain to interpersonal, emotional, or spiritual question about why one would be making choices in their own personal world in relationship to everything else that's going on in our world as a whole. And it's a challenge at times using these iconic movie guys and ladies to find where those points connect. But I think foremost, bringing those together that means something and can ask a question, a deeper question, it's on my mind the whole time that I'm doing what I do. And I don't see that, it's always been there, and I don't see that ever changing. Sometimes I hit the mark, sometimes not so much maybe, but I'm doing my best to do that.
And you know what, I think when you said earlier that these are things that no matter what time we're living in, we're all kind of faced with that. I mean, we can look at now at what's happening in the Ukraine and people who are sacrificing, for the good of the whole. I mean, it's just, I think we can be lulled, especially in our country, into thinking that, no, that's World War II. That would never happen. No one would do that, right?
Right.
And here we are again, trying to figure this out. And yeah, so there are layers of meaning too to the work. So
And then
yeah.
maybe we can make a different choice and not repeat history, not repeat something that we all regret.
Right. Yet somehow we can't help ourselves, it seems. But Nancy, any thoughts you want to add?
I mean, I just go back in my work. It's always been about animals. And I try to, I mean, the people who like my work are people who love animals, and we share that in common. And so I've met a lot of patrons who become friends because we do have a lot in common. And so that's been a wonderful thing for me and my art. But also, I've tried to give back and be involved with organizations that are trying to save the animals, work on animal conservation. Yes, yeah.
All right.
Oh my God.
yeah, so I saw Nancy had the her little guy, and here's my little guy.
There we go.
This is Blade. And Nancy, I love doing animals as well. That's basically, I mean, I'll do some figures of humans, but most of the work is animals. I love them to death.
Fabulous. Yeah, they're just fantastic. Incredible. I mean, both you artists are just, I love it. I mean, you're centering in on something iconic and doing it in a different way, like Rose says. But yeah, I mean, I'm not 20 years old, so I'm at a point where, I want my work to mean something and to give back. And so done some different fundraisers and things like that. And I think it's important.
Yeah.
I had seen Michael's work. I've been to the Russells just to watch a couple times, and what I really like is that it's unique. It really stands out than just a landscape with some mountains and whatnot. I love other artists when it's unique, and Yeah, you got your little guy there.
Here we are, everybody with the dog,
This is Banjo.
Joe.
Hi, Banjo. Say hi to Blade.
Hey, Blade.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Well, you're gonna make me cry. I lost my little guy 2 months ago. So
Oh,
That's
yeah.
tough.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, well, this has been so much fun. I don't know, those of you out there listening, if you have any comments or questions for our dog loving artist. You all are so funny. But I really appreciate what you do, and I'm glad that you bring this work to us and to the audience, because I think it's so vital that artists, especially now, are creating work that gets us to think and talk and interact with each other, even if we're talking about favorite movies or something that's whimsical or joyful or just makes you laugh. Like, I think it's really important that we can do that. And so we have Maeve Eichelberger on, and she's one of our fabulous artists. And she wrote, "Can't wait to see these all in person. You and me both, Maeve." And then Becky, thank you all for taking the time to chat today. Wonderful work, all three. I agree, and truly cannot wait to see it in person. So any questions, any closing thoughts or comments? And otherwise, I'm gonna make you all get back to the easel pronto. Put the dogs down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Rose, for
Thank
doing this
you.
again, and for everything that you do for the show, and just glad to be a part of it.
So glad
Yeah,
you all are part of it.
Same thing. I just, like I said in the beginning, I'm honored and so thankful that I get to be in the show.
Great to have your work.
Thank you, Rose. I'm
Thank you.
excited. It's my second year, so I'm a newbie, but it's wonderful.
Oh, you're hitting your stride. You're just hitting your stride. Okay, so everybody out there who's listening, please check with the Coors Show website. We're going to have more work uploaded in the coming weeks, and we should have everything up there in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll find information on openings. There are a lot of times during December where you can preview the work, no pre-sales, but you can come preview the work that we have. And then we kick everything off very beginning of January. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody. And thanks for coming on this call, Shay, Michael, and Nancy. I just can't thank you enough. Thank you for being in the show. Thanks for being on the call.
Okay.
Awesome. This
Thanks
was
again,
fun.
Rose.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.